Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have a very special guest, Jack Hineman, who is here to present his very first IronViz entry on 24. I admit that I haven't watched that series before. I'm more of a John Wick fan, but I know 24 precedes John Wick, so we'll talk a little bit more on that. But to start off, give us a quick introduction of yourself and how you came about the Tableau community.
Yeah, so my name's Jack Hineman. I'm serving my second year as an ambassador. I've been using the product for about 7 years now. I kind of got voluntold into the BI community. I was working in our IS department as a network administrator. My boss at the time went to breakfast with our executive team, and our president said, "Hey, I need someone to build this bell curve." And my boss was like, "Well, Jack can build that bell curve," and then came back to the office and said, "Hey, I just promised this bell curve, so you better figure it out." I started my pivot into data viz and analytics about 8 years ago. Been doing that ever since. It's way better than being the network administrator, I can tell you that much. But the community's been awesome, and you get these kind of snowball of ideas where feature comes out and you get to feed off everybody else's ideas and expand on it, and it's been really awesome. So love that part of the community.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. So this year was your first entering IronViz, and I'm sure going through the ideation of deciding on the topic definitely took you quite a while. So maybe walk us through what were the ideas and how you actually ended up with 24.
I don't know why I've had this thought in my head of making a digital clock in Tableau for a long time. But then when the whole data plus TV thing came out, I thought this was a perfect chance. 24 is one of my favorite shows. Every episode is an hour of real time. Episode 1 might be midnight to 1 a.m. And so everything's happening during the course of an hour versus most shows that happen over the course of several days. The clock is heavily featured. Every time it comes out a commercial or every episode ends, you see this clock counting down the day. Not sure if the juice was worth the squeeze as far as how much effort it took to make this clock happen, but every now and then I get in these battles with Tableau where either it's going to win or I'm going to win, and I keep going even though it might not have been the most efficient use of my time. There's a lot that got scrapped. I kind of understand now why I haven't submitted before. There's so many ideas that just couldn't make it in under the deadline, and I'm sure you can imagine that performance was starting to become an issue with all the different calculations that were going on as well. But overall, obviously happy I did it.
So in terms of the design, I would imagine that it is kind of based on the TV series itself, like the themes, the color schemes, and all.
Yeah, the start of my design process was an attempt to recreate this. And this immediately made me think of these 7-segment digital readouts. So I just kept tracing this down of how to do this. And I know I've seen Brian Moore did a whole post about his process. One of the things he mentioned, which I'm a huge proponent of, is to parameterize as much as you can. And I knew I'm not going to guess the right size or anything. So I'd come in here, I make a parameter for the digit height. And now I can play with this and get this right. Then I just kept building on it from there. So I decided I didn't want the numbers to go all the way edge to edge. So now I've got this padding parameter that I can change how much outer space is going to be around the edge of all the digits. This is the first iteration that's pretty close, but there's a couple things with the logo that just aren't matching this kind of style. So the first thing is that the logo's in italic. And then the other thing is that there's a rounded corner to them. So as I keep playing with it, here's that, again, that squared off digit the way it was. But now I bring in a couple more parameters to round this corner to make this point. Basically, it's saying this point is only 25% of the total width. And so that got me a little closer. And so again, make another parameter here where I can go play with this and change how much italic it is. And basically it's just saying the bigger your y coordinate is, shift your x coordinate by this factor. Then here you can see, here's the The first iteration of this where I've italicized it, and this kind of shows the evolution of the three, but using the parameters and allowing myself to manipulate things versus having to go inside all these calcs and change all these numbers around was definitely a huge benefit.
I was going to say, if you didn't have all these parameters, I think this entire process would have taken forever.
Oh, it's ridiculous. So if you look at one of these calcs, basically you've got 7 segments. As I'm going through and identifying the points, you see all these parameters that are coming in. But if these were all numbers, that I'd have to go change all the places, make those adjustments, which would just be crazy. So I'm a big proponent of using your parameters to adjust any variables that you have as you're going through the design process. That way you don't get stuck with digging inside of calcs and trying to find all the places that you change that value.
Yeah, I kind of dig this grade process. I'll probably try to incorporate more parameters when I'm building vizzes from now. Would you say that this recreation of the digital clock took you the longest time in the entire process?
Yeah, this was quite a bit. I knew if I didn't get it right, it's not going to have the same impact of people that have seen the show, because if I didn't, I think the rest of it kind of falls flat.
Yeah, definitely. I think this being the anchor piece for your viz plays a lot in the entire artistic feel of it. And I'm glad that you managed to get it through because it's amazing work. For your other pages, I noticed that there were a lot of images or rather points that were drawing shapes. The first page had a gun, and then you had one page with the Statue of Liberty, you have one page with the explosions and stuff like that, which was really cool. How did you manage to do all those?
Yes, the Flairledge twins, thankfully, have a blog for everything. Basically comes down to this Spotify coordinator tool. And you can just import a file, and then it's going to give you dots. Before this, I was looking this up. Now you need an SVG, a vector image. So I'm going to download that, and we'll call it podcast. Then you come in here, you select your file. We can refine the dots. So I can say I want 300 points. I just put all these to 1. I mean, I get the dot radius one, but I don't necessarily know the other ones. And then I can say get coordinates. If I want the CSV, save as, and I'll put that in there. And then I did a little prep on this before. So let me go refresh my data. All right, so the only thing I've really done is scaled those coordinates. So one of the things, I use a lot of map layers in my viz. One of the constraints, though, is that they are limited by the bounds of latitude and longitude. You frequently have to scale your number down to something that can fit within latitude and longitude between 0 and 1. What happens a lot with map layers is make this, which it puts it on an actual map. But if I want to do the true map layer things, I can't do it till I flip the axis. And now I can't add a separate map layer because now that I've flipped the axis, it doesn't think it's a map anymore. So the first thing I'll do with any map layer, this is a trick from Jessica Moon, where she makes this origin calc, which is just a make point of 0. So I start all my maps. I'll do one of this origin. I do a second origin, and now I flip it. And because now it knows it's map layers, I can pull a third layer on, and I just hide these 2 origins.
That's a neat trick because I always encounter the same issue that you showed earlier on with not being able to add additional map layers.
Yeah, so you basically have to have a second layer before you flip it, and then you can add more layers after that. And so now you've got that shape as points that you can play with inside Tableau. It was way easier than I thought it was going to be. It doesn't take much time at all, but it's super cool. And, you know, I kind of wanted to show some different things. So this was another earlier version where I found this data set on all the deaths that ever happened on the show. It wound up feeling morbid that all I was talking about is death, so I wound up cutting a lot of this stuff. But if you can see all these dots in the background, they actually represented all of the deaths in the show, which there was like a nuclear bomb that went off. You don't really get this on Tableau Public, but I was going to try and have it animate, like as this appeared, it actually pulled the dots from the background into the view. So when this point in the timeline isn't selected, all this plane portion is actually sitting off canvas to the upper right, and this flame is sitting off canvas down below. And so the way I was hoping it would work is when you click to go to this stage, you see the plane fly in from the right, and then this flame come up from the ground. That was what I was going for. I don't think that shows up very well on Tableau Public as far as the animation. I think it pauses the animation so they just kind of appear instead of come in from the sides. But that was one of the thoughts I had.
It happens. I was struggling with my viz as well, just getting the plum pudding to slide from left to right or up to bottom. And yours is even much deeper compared to mine because you have so many different points. And I think Tableau doesn't really do that well, especially when it comes to too many calculations and all. There's probably a limit sits at the back of their algorithm, but we never know what that is. And I hope that in the future, Tableau somehow makes this easier for us, because I think animation is a very powerful tool when it comes to data storytelling.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've been pleasantly surprised a few times where I couldn't get the animation on desktop, and then I published it and the animation worked great. So who knows? Maybe they're closer than we think.
Yeah, maybe. So I think you've given us a very good view on your processes. There's a lot to learn from here for the committee in terms of getting parameters really early in your development process so that you can actually change things on the fly, and it makes the whole development process a lot easier. And I love this viz because of how you have used animations. I know it doesn't work that well on Tableau Public, but I did have a blast when I was going through it on desktop. You have all these flyby effects, which hopefully one day we'll get it to work a lot more easier on Tableau Public.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you, Jack, for walking us through this amazing viz. I hope everyone learned something, and we'll see everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. So I got to ask, my son made me, how is it working at 2K?
So I've been here 5 years, and when I first started, I didn't know Tableau at all because I came from a Power BI background, and everyone was using Tableau, so I had to put myself through the work and learn it in about 3 to 6 months time, which was a lot of work, but it paid off. I've been in different departments, but 2 years ago, the BI director scouted me out and asked if I wanted to join the team, and I've been in the BI team ever since. So it's pretty fun. I'm assuming your boy plays some of 2K games.
We'll play a little bit, yeah.
Okay. What's his favorite ones?
Probably NBA 2K, but we've had the WWE one, a couple others. I'm trying to think of the there's a few non-sports games that 2K makes, right?
Yes, so Civilization, Borderlands. We did have the Lego 2K Drive, which is kind of like a Mario Kart, I would say. We also had Mafia, but I don't play a lot of 2K games, unfortunately, because I'm not really big on sports game. I'm more of a role-playing gamer.
Yeah, they don't. I saw on your viz this transition to parenthood and if you're going to have as much time for gaming. And I don't know, have you ever heard of Skylanders?
Is it the one with the AR figures and all?
Yeah. So my kids loved that. And they're pretty fun games. It's toys and it's video games at the same time. So they were pumped to go get new guys. And like, you put the little guy on the thing and he shows up on the TV and their minds were blown. So if you can find some of them somewhere from a garage sale, you should pick it up because kids eat that stuff up.
Yes, definitely. Recently, my nephew and niece have been coming over to play games because it's nearing the holiday season, and they've been playing Ninja Turtles on my PS5. those beat 'em up brawler kind of video games. My daughters have been joining a fun, even though they suck at it. But it's fun just watching them beat up stuff, and it doesn't take much brain power. You just move your joystick around, just hit stuff.
Yep, that's what they're looking for early on.
Exactly.
Stuff they can just smash buttons on.
Yeah.